Frisch, and that would be it. Okay, and here he is, his hand is up. So I believe we now have everyone back. Just to resettle us moving forward, we do have a fairly tight agenda. We are expected to have PEC until 3 o'clock. We are expected to have a closed session until 4:30. We are going to make every effort, and by every effort, we are going to stop at 4:30. We will not go beyond that time. Having said that, based on the discussions that we had earlier, I would like to revisit two pieces. One, the opportunity for all of our board members to have a chance to speak and to have their questions be heard. To be fully transparent, because we are beyond our time for the budget work session, I would like for board members to raise their hands after I finish to show support in allowing those who have not yet had the opportunity to speak to do so. They will have their full 3 minutes to do with it what they will, just like everyone did when we started the session. So that is the first thing that I would like for you to show support for if you choose to, which is to allow board members who have not spoken the opportunity to do so. So raise your hand at this time if you can support that. I see Ms. Omesh, Ms. Corbett, I'm sorry, I have to do this a little bit differently. New format here, I'm struggling. Okay, Ms. Omesh, Mr. Frisch, Ms. Corbett Sanders, Ms. Dernak Kofax, Ms. Pekarsky, Ms. Tolan, Ms. Keys Gamara, Ms. McLaughlin, and myself. That is beyond the majority. So we will start there. And then afterwards, I will give us the next set of directions. So please lower your hands. If you did not speak and you would like to speak at this time, please raise your hands. Ms. Tolan, did you not speak before? Okay, I think we will start with Ms. Denrock Kofax. So please go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you to my colleagues who are allowing all board members to have a voice. My first, and what I will do, I will state these and I will not ask for staff answers at this time, but they can be addressed in next steps. So for many years, we have looked at our alternative schools and we have talked about adding extracurriculars to those schools. Number one, I would like to see if this is feasible. I would like to know if what cost analysis or if any of this has been done, because I know we have a previous board, and I am uncertain where we left it with this board, have directed the Superintendent Brabrand to do that at some point. So I would like answers to that. My second one is regarding clubs. I know that one of the big things that TJ has their selling point. They're like, if we get one child and another student, we have a club no matter what. I do know that unfortunately has not been the case in some other comprehensive high schools. And what has happened through the years, oftentimes it comes down to a decision, oh, we don't have the monies. And we don't have the monies because we don't have funds to get a club sponsor or a teacher sponsor. So I think that's very important. If we could have an analysis of how these funds are distributed on a school-wide basis and how the decision process is made. I would like that in a step-by-step analysis. And finally, I do want to thank all of the staff, Mr. Greenfelder, and your team for all of the work you have done, particularly Mark, with your work and Project Momentum. Many of the schools that needed intensive services were in Region 3. We saw such progress for years. And one way I think, as people stated, perhaps this wasn't, while Ms. Marin, Dr. Brabrand, and Mr. Smith and I and all of your team worked on it, perhaps we didn't look at it the lens where there was such an intensive focus on the budget and how those monies work. So I think perhaps a 2x2 sessions would be helpful for that for school board members. So I would suggest that as the next step. And if there's still questions after those 2x2s, perhaps we can have another public session where we talk about in tandem the programming itself, as well as how the funds are dispersed. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Darna Kofax. As you have stated, your questions will be forwarded for budget next steps for responses, because that's how we have been handling the questions that come out of the budget work sessions. It is not a typical work steps environment. Thank you. Ms. Pekarsky.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Kofax actually really kind of hit the nail on the head as to what I thought we were going to have today. And thank you, Mr. Greenfelter. This was just, it was very informational for us as to what you do and how you do it, but really that analysis of here's this investment, this is what we're getting for this investment, here are our needs, and if we put, more money into this, this is what we could do with that. I mean, really tying that budget and what your office does to close these gaps is where I'd like us. I don't know what format we're going to do, but really that's where I'd like to see the conversation go from here. The one question I do have, can you speak a little bit as to why the non-traditional programs kind of fit under your department over here?
I can give it a try, and then if Dr. Brabrand or Dr. Presidio would like to chime in. I think, when we think of school supports and we think of the various academic supports that we've traditionally provided in the Office of School Support when the new department was created, traditionally, where non-traditional schools sat, I'm not sure that they always got the focus that they had deserved or that they had warranted, because DSS is such a large and encompassing office. That's where that office used to sit, in that department. And if you can imagine all the management constraints and issues and different things that fall under that. So the idea was to bring non-traditional schools out of that so they could get some additional support and guidance and just leadership with what they had. That's really my understanding of it, and I've certainly welcomed them with open arms and look forward to learning more about them. Having been a high school principal, I certainly used those resources for many years during that time, but I'm still continuing to learn and grow with Kate as we learn about that and try to reset the vision going forward under Dr. Presidio.
Thank you very much, Mr. Greenfelter. I'm going to ask staff if there are questions that are being lobbed to you, please be as succinct as possible. Ms. Pekarsky?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know if Dr. Brabrand wants to add anything to that. It was just kind of surprising to me, considering, for example, our homebound students, I mean, this is their primary instruction. So to kind of fall under this, I don't know if they're disconnected from I don't know. I'm just a little bit worried about how they've been placed here.
So Stella, here's what I'd tell you. Straight answer, right? Straight question, straight answer. Teresa often felt, Teresa Johnson, that the department didn't get the time and attention that it needed. There were so many things, so many competing demands in DSS. Non-traditional also, Mark had resources to deploy to schools. He had expertise about school improvement, and his team did. Why aren't we giving those services and supports to help our non-traditional schools? So putting them under that, getting a chance to have more cross collaboration about what works in schools. If it's good for our base school, it's good for a non-traditional school. That was part of the thinking, to really cross-pollinate the work and success of Project Momentum with those non-traditional schools. So those are some of the reasons.
Thank you, Dr. Brabrand. Ms. Pekarsky?
Okay, I'll just stop here, but look forward to the next time we discuss.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ms. Cohen.
Thank you. I would say during this pandemic, I've probably talked more to Mark and to Bill than anybody else. And I so appreciate how quickly you guys get back with solutions. And I know you have had to adapt more than a lot of people. So thank you. My couple of questions, one were just wanted to make sure with assistant DSAs, I know that this year in trying to deal with COVID and tracking that down and what teams had to pause and everything else, what that was just like such an unbelievable workload. So I just wanted to make sure that you all feel like the budget going forward that we're hoping to pass this year, that is reflective of the need in our high schools for our DSAs and our ADSAs.
Well, let me take that one, Miss Cohen, and Mark, Bill, add in. Our high school principals have advocated for an additional 0.5 of ADSA staffing. We currently give them 0.5. They'd like the other 0.5. Some schools trade for it. Our athletic program, and here's the dynamic, just again, completely real, transparent. The growth of just our athletic programs to manage. Many of you all are talking about how do we create equity and more supports for our activity programs. Those things are issues even beyond necessarily having an additional 0.5 ADSA to be able to handle all of that work. And the reality is we've not been equitable in our activities. Everybody knows that. All of you know that. The community knows it. PTAs in some places have $150,000. In other places, they have $4,000. That makes a range of different ability to offer after-school programming at elementary. Many of you, I do want to remind you, pre-pandemic, in the budget that was about to pass, we had, with Dr. Duran's help, and Bill Kern and Mark, created a formula to support elementary, middle, and high school extracurricular and athletic activities. But that was put on hold in the pandemic. We'd certainly love to look at it. It's not in my budget. This was a modest budget this year, but it is part of the work we would like to do because this is an area of uncharted territory where we can build in equity better than what we've done it before.
Yeah, and I would just add that, the pandemic lens certainly for us, I think, has really shown the importance of all of these extra pieces that school is. So I'm supportive of revisiting that. If you'd like to let us know what that looks like. Another question is about literacy access for our kids who are either accessing VAP or on non-SOL track. I think that has been a really big issue in FCPS, that we have not seen that access. And I guess if Mark, you could talk from a budgetary lens, what's the intersection there with DSS versus what you do of how do we ensure that those kids are getting the same literacy access?
I'm going to start real briefly, then ask Sloan to chime in on this because I know that he has led a lot of the work within ISD around the literacy access. I can tell you that we have DSS staffs a special ed resource teacher in our department. So they work with the region teams who then ultimately work with the individual schools that need the additional support around any type of special ed issues, whether it's VAP, whether it's they're on a non-SOL trajectory, and then get the additional support if like a tier 3 intervention if they're needed from DSS. So it's really helped us work collaboratively. But in terms of if there's specific literacy pieces, I would ask that Sloan may provide a little bit more information on that if that's more helpful.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Excuse me. I would just say real briefly, I think the biggest nugget here is that the literacy programming for general ed is designed in the instructional services department and for special ed in the Department of Special Services. And then both of those departments coordinate and collaborate together. And then Mark's Department of School Improvements and Supports is an additional resource to provide additional coaching and support to teachers in implementing those services that have been designed for students in the other core departments. So when we talk about the integration of services across the chief academic office, it's really those three departments working together. But we'd be happy to provide a lot more information about, what we're doing in literacy, what the emerging needs as a result of the pandemic look like with respect to literacy programming and supports for students. And we do anticipate putting a lot of additional supports together to support literacy, particularly early literacy, moving forward throughout the remainder of this year and then into next school year and beyond. So again, we'd be happy to talk with the board about that in a lot more detail.
Yeah, I think if we could get more information, just to go back to budget of the SPED resource teachers too, that were new last year, what they did this year, but in the literacy integration with DSS, in particular for our visually impaired kids. And as I mentioned, our kids who are non-SOL track, would be very helpful because we are getting a lot of feedback about concerns there. So we'd be happy to share those with you and hopefully you can share with us. All right, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cohen. As I am the last speaker, as I shared before, I will yield my time because I do know we have other things to do, but that does not mean I do not have questions. So Mr. Greenfelder, I will be reaching out to you with my questions. But just overall, I believe that there were 2 work sessions that took place here. There was the budget piece and just the board learning about this new department. And I believe we need time to continue on both those fronts. So at chairs tomorrow, Ms. Pekarsky and I will review with staff to see what else we can do. In addition to the 2x2s that were recommended by Ms. Denrock Kofax, I think that's a good first start. But we will probably need to come back whole group in order to move this forward to not only build understanding, but to get the analysis that folks are craving and should have. So it is now 1:46. We will have until 3 o'clock for the PEC section. At this point, I will turn it over to the meeting managers for that very important piece. And I just want to stress, folks, we may not have the time to do all of that work. It is important, but it is not necessarily time sensitive. So I want us to be mindful of stopping at 3 o'clock so we can move on to our next meeting. And I know that our presenter and meeting managers try to confer to make sure that we can do exactly that. So I will turn it over at this time to Ms. Cohen and Ms. Omesh. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to do our best to get through. We're going to ask some patience from our colleagues as we kind of try to adapt and try to get done by 3 o'clock, because I do think this is one of the more important things that we're tasked with is how do we effectively engage. So I don't want to give that short shrift. The way that in this tightened time, Abrar and I have kind of tried to figure out how best to navigate this is first, Ms. Sizemore-Heiser is going to give her presentation. She's going to be quick as she can. At the end of that presentation will be our key decision-making points. At that point, what we'd like is we'll give everybody 2 minutes who has general comments and questions, but then we'll take a quick pause and revisit those key points, see if we can get consensus among those 10 items. And the ones that we can, great, we'll push those aside. The ones that we can't, we'll go back with time permitting on each one and let people be able to ask their individual questions on those. We'll see how it works. Again, we'll just ask patience and be as fluid as we can to figure out, since this is a bit of a new way for us to do public engagement. All right, Ms. Sizemore-Heiser, take it away.
Thank you, Ms. Cohen and Ms. Omesh, and thank you, my colleagues. As the chair of the Public Engagement Committee, I'm honored here to be able to present our proposed update to the citizen participation policy. This was actually an update that predated my time on this board and predated my time as the chair of the Public Engagement Committee. And so I first want to thank my colleagues on the Public Engagement Committee, Karen Corbett-Sanders, Carl Frisch, and Abrar Omesh, for their really hard work and dedication to turning this draft around as quickly as we could. And I know we were originally slated to present this in February, so I appreciate my colleagues' time today in the draft and in their comments. So I'm going to try to go very quickly. You may have seen several documents posted on board docs. The proposed policy is posted there. There's also a chart that compares some of the key changes or key, different things that we changed or added or kept from the previous policy that's currently in effect to this current one, as well as this PowerPoint presentation. So Ms. Medea, if you could put up the presentation, I would appreciate it. Thank you. If you so these are just proposed changes for today. If you don't mind going to the next screen. The next slide, please. Thank you. So our purpose today was to update the citizen participation section of the governance manual, really with an eye to increase public comment and engagement. We've had several members from the community who've talked to us about wanting to speak at our meetings, but the slots have closed very quickly. And so there's a lot of interest on this. So the purpose of today's work session is to reach agreement on major issues, changes in the update, and then there'll be a vote at a future regular business meeting. What I'm going to do today is walk you through in this presentation the major changes. Hopefully you've all had a chance to read the updated draft policy as well as see this presentation. So this should be fairly quick. And then at the end, we'll talk about the key decision points. Next slide, please. Next slide, please, Ms. Medea. Ms. Medea, if you can hear me. Oh, perfect. Thank you. So the first sort of key change we made is a proposed introduction. The current introduction really just invited members of the public to attend the meetings. Our proposed introduction, as you can see, is that they're not just invited to attend, but encouraged to attend the meetings and hearings to observe the deliberations and provide comments on those deliberations. So we really wanted to make it clear that we welcome comments from our public, not just attendance. Next slide, please. Thank you. Is there a way to make that a little bit bigger, please, Ms. Medea, so we can kind of see it? At least on my computer, the screen is pretty small. I think if you go in full screen mode, perhaps you can see it better. Up at the top corner, right next to the X, there's the full screen. I don't know if you're there. Very top corner, next to the very, very top. Yeah, we can do that. That makes it bigger. Right, well, hopefully you'll have this in front of you so you can see it. The first, so key points in section 1A, which is really, public participation, who, what, where, when, how, is kind of the main section, parts of this section. The first key that we changed is on the who. We added a section to include non-Fairfax County staff, students, and parents. So if you're a staff member, a student, or a parent who doesn't live in Fairfax County, we allowed you to be able to speak at our public meetings. And please don't, I wanted to sort of preface, I meant to say this, please don't wordsmith based on this. This presentation is just a summary. The actual draft policy is also posted in board docs and was posted. So the actual language is in board docs. This is just summarizing the key changes we made. So the actual language in board docs specifies that it's non-Fairfax County, FCPS staff, students, and parents. One of the questions is, do we want to keep that in there? The other question that came up is, do we want to include FCPS alumni? And the third question was, do we need to better define business partners? Business partners was actually part of the previous public participation policy. But the question comes, do we need to better define business partners? So really, for you all to think about, your key decision point is, do we want to expand to include non-Fairfax County staff, students, and parents, as well as alumni? The next question here is the topic. In the old public participation in the governance manual, we really narrowed it to speak to agenda items and not speak about a staff or student. The new one, there's no topic restriction, except we still do not allow them to target students, but there's no topic restriction. We felt that it was difficult to maintain that anyway, so we let people speak as to what they want to. The next sort of key point is number of speakers. The old one, we had 10 in person and 5 video. In order to be more inclusive and allow people more flexibility in how they present, our new one is the same 15 spots, but we allow people to choose whether they want to be in person or video testimony. The question comes up as to whether this gives enough time for our school board office and our chair to review the video to make sure it complies with our regulations. So that's one question around that piece, and I'll address this at the end as well. No change in the sign up for speakers. The other major change is on a wait list. Previously, we did not have a wait list until the day of the meeting. You signed up. If you didn't get a spot, you could come to the meeting and sign up at the meeting to speak if there was room available. We now have created a wait list process of 15 random in-person from people who weren't able to get an initial spot. The wait list does not carry over to the next meeting. There's no videos to the wait list. So you still have to come in person to speak, but you will get notified whether you're on the wait list or not. The other major change in this section is repeat speakers. What we've done, and other school systems do this, and the Board of Supervisors also does this, but we have said that once you speak, you cannot speak for 2 more business meetings, so essentially a month. And we were hoping that this would allow for a broader range of speakers to be able to speak to our meetings. The Board of Supervisors, just by way of comparison, has a 6-month gap. Once you speak, you have to wait 6 more months. So we as a committee thought that might be too long. So we made it 2 business meetings. So that's something for you all to think about, whether you want to keep that sort of prohibition on repeat speakers at each meeting and whether this length of time is sufficient. Next slide. I'm trying to go through this. I apologize as quickly as I can. I know this material is posted, but I want to save as much room as I can for discussion. This section 1B is brand new. We added 5 speaking spots for very specific organizations. We felt like there was room to hear from some of our experts that we have serving us. So we define the organizations as county-wide PTAs So for example, FCC, PTA, SEPTA would be included. And school board advisory committee, so rooms for some of our advisory committee to come speak to us on behalf of the committee. Bear in mind that any individual, regardless if they're on the advisory committee or not, can still sign up to speak during the regular speaking portion. This is specifically on behalf of the committee. And FCPS staff associations. We defined it specifically to those. It was very clear which organizations were included in this. And we try to make them very tightly linked to FCPS's mission and working with FCPS. One spot for organization, first come, first serve, and these spots are filled by an email from the head of the organization to the school board chair. And we left a 3-minute time limit for all speaking spots. So the previous section and this one, the 3-minute time limit was the same. So the questions here really for you all to ponder is, if we agree to adding these organizations, do you agree with the current definition of organization? Do you want to expand it, narrow it? Will they be subject to the same restrictions of speaking at the next 2 meetings? And do we want to include Fairfax County recognized organizations, which would broaden it from what we've listed here? So that's a new section we've added for your consideration. Next slide, please, Ms. Medea. Thank you. And I apologize again for going so fast. We've updated the guidelines for speaking. The old really talked about that we would not hear statements involving matters subject to public hearing, such as our capital improvement, or personal attacks on any person or about a student or staff. Given some legal guidance from our counsel, we recognize that we really can't ban. There's some First Amendment concerns about banning conversations about staff, but we certainly can about students. So what we have done in our new, and again, this is just paraphrasing it, that we want to have comments be respectful, no profanity, maintain decorum, and comments cannot run counter to the FCPS non-discrimination policy, and that policy will be attached. The link will be attached to this so people can see. We also included that there's no comments that will be targeting students. Those will not be allowed. So we also defined what signs are and are not allowed. We've sort of prohibited loud outbursts and anything that kind of disrupts the meeting. So those are, again, in the policy itself draft, which is posted on board docs, all of those are delineated, but we did go into more detail. Thank you, Carl, for the full text and comparison. The comparison is a little off, Carl, so the full text would be helpful. And then the other major change we made is that we are not allowing speaker substitutions or yielding time. So again, to try to broaden who would speak, what we found is people would sign up and then they would substitute out speakers. And this was especially an issue with videos, where people would sign up, put a video that may or may not be what their speech was, and then substitute out videos, which created a greater burden on our staff to review those videos. We did keep the current policy, kept a exception to speakers in there. That current policy said the chair can make an exception to speakers. We've kept that exception, but we've said the chair has to do in consultation with the vice chair and with 24-hour notice to the board. And for those you may wonder why this is there, it really, in my mind, and as we talk in the committee, is there for in case there's some speaker that we really want to have before the board, but they didn't go through this process. And I can think of, a current president or vice president, somebody to that stature. I don't know if they would want to address the Fairfax County School Board, but if they do, we wanted to make sure there was a space for somebody of that stature to be able to address the board should they want to. So that's that piece of it. Next slide, please, Ms. Medea. The next section is really clarifying our video testimony. We didn't make any change in terms of when they have to request being able to submit a video instead of speaking in person, and we didn't change when that video must be submitted. So currently they have to submit their video when they make the request to speak. So at the time that they sign up, they must submit a link to a valid working video. Now our sign up list goes until 4:30 the day before, but videos must be submitted 36 hours in advance of the meeting. And that really gives time for our school board office to review the videos, make sure they follow all of our rules, and we reach back out to people who submitted videos in case they don't, in time for our chair to review them. The major change we made to videos was that there's no substitutions for video testimony. And that, again, people who sign up, sometimes they will submit a link to a YouTube video that isn't their testimony and then substitute it out. And that creates some work for staff and the chair. And so we said, no, when you sign up, you must submit your video. And we've clarified that the video must be original content by the speaker, same decorum expectations as in person, and consistent with FCC regulations, which we've going to attach a link to. And we just clarified that the school board chair makes the final determination whether the videos comply with our regulations and policy. So that's sort of, there's really no change in how videos are submitted or the timeline. It's just the major change is no substitutions. I'm almost done, so thank you for your patience. Next section, please, Ms. Medea. All right, so public hearings. We didn't change anything about our legally required public hearings, CIP, boundary, budget. We've left that the same. What we have done is we found that in our governance manual, there's actually some language around the board will have 2 additional hearings in the fall and the spring before a regular business meeting. So we clarified that a little bit. We kept the 2 additional public hearings, but we said scheduled in September and January, either as part of a meeting or separate to allow a little more flexibility. And same, we kept that the topics of any additional public hearings cannot be public hearings that are already scheduled, so CIP, budget, and boundaries. The question you really want to think about here is, should there be a limit for the number of speakers for the additional public hearings? We cannot have a limit, my understanding is, from our legal counsel on the ones that are legally required for CIP, budget, and boundaries. Should the limit be the discretion of the chair, or should we set a limit? And the other question really is, do you want to have them in September or January? We did that to try to make sure they happened in a specific month rather than fall and spring, or do we want more flexibility? So something to think about here. And then the last piece, next slide, Ms. Medea, is we updated the chair's script for the meetings to really sort of be in line with some of the things that we changed. So for example, we added that the speaker should be respectful, observe proper decorum, and the comments should not, have avoid comments that run counter to the school's non-discrimination policy. And so that's really the biggest thing. We also clarified that speakers cannot target individual students, but should refrain from using personally identified information in connection with school-based employees. And that was, again, with guidance from our legal counsel, that we cannot ban that, but we want to encourage it. So that's sort of the walkthrough of some of the major changes as quickly as I can. I wanted to, next slide, please, Ms. Medea. These are the key decisions that I really would like to focus our attention on. And the first one is who. Do we want to expand who's allowed to speak to us to include the non-Fairfax County staff, students, alumni? And, do we want to define business partners a little bit more? The next question is the topic. Are you okay with not having a topic restriction, but also still complying? The number and format. Do we want to have 15 video or in person versus 10 in person and 5 video? It creates more work for our school board office and chair to review 15 videos, but provides greater flexibility. Wait list, 15 random from the sign up, just flagging that if we're okay with creating a wait list rather than just showing up at the meeting. You can still show up at the meeting and speak at this space. The restriction on future speaking to business meetings. Organizations, do we want that? If so, how do we define them? How do we limit the spots? Same restrictions. Substitutions, yes or no? Do we want to allow for substitutions of speakers, video or in person? Timing of videos, testimony be submitted 36 hours in advance. Is that enough time to review them if we increase to 15 potential videos versus just 5? Public hearings, do we want to have additional public hearings specified in January and September? Do we want to have limits? Sign-up times, one of the questions came up is, do we want to coordinate the sign-up time for phone and online? Right now, our online sign-up is 6 a.m., our phone is 8 a.m. So people are finding that sometimes the online fills up all the spots, and so people who are calling in don't get any spots. One of the reasons for that is our school board office doesn't have anybody there at 6 a.m. If we move the sign up to 8 or 8:30, then there's a concern that students or staff may not be able to sign up because they'll be in school. So those are some of the things to think about with the sign up times. There was a question about automated phone systems. I want to briefly, this is not on the slide, but bring up a couple things that a couple members have brought up to me yesterday after the slides were posted. And the first question was about a lottery. Instead of having a first come, first serve for sign up as we do now, and as in this draft, we want to have a lottery or some sort of randomized way of doing it. And we did discuss that during the public engagement committee. And one of the concerns was with a lottery, it extends the time before people are notified. So it makes it more difficult for people to have the time to submit videos and for those videos to be reviewed. So the question really came up of, if we want to expand flexibility of how people present by presenting using videos versus in person, we need to get those videos earlier rather than later to have time to review them. And that makes it difficult to have the timeline needed to sort of open the list, close the list, do the lottery, and then allow people 24 or 48 hours to submit videos. So that was really one of the biggest reasons why we didn't go that path, but something to think about. There's a few options you can look at. You can reduce the flexibility of format and have random sign up instead, a lottery. You can still require videos at sign up, but with a recognition that they may not get played if they don't get picked as part of the lottery. You can go back to 10 in person and 5 video. You can shorten the sign up window. You can shorten the amount of time to speak. And so that would limit, that would increase the number of spots if you limit the time to speak to 2 minutes. I will tell you that in looking at other school systems, they're all over the place in terms of the limit of time. Some are 3 minutes, some are 2 minutes, some are 5, some are leave it to the discretion of the chair. So everyone's kind of all over the place. And the other option you can look at is doing live virtual testimony. So for example, even if we're meeting in person, can we allow for Zoom testimony from people or phone call testimony? It's a little harder to control if they do violate the rules, but that's another option to look at. And then the last thing really is the time limit. So I threw a lot out there at you. So what I was going to do is turn it back over to the meeting managers to kind of walk through the key decision points and go from there. And I'm here obviously happy to answer any questions that you have about the process or conversation on PEC as well as we go through it.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Sizemore-Heiser. And it's really going to kind of depend on how many folks want to speak, what we're going to be able to accomplish, but we're going to try to move along. So first I saw Ms. McLaughlin. We're going to do 2 minutes for this round, and hopefully we'll have time after.
Great, thank you. So I want to just go to the first bullet because I think it's the most important about the who. From my service on the board, it was my understanding that that is not a continuous statement of non-Fairfax staff, students, and parents. It's that we're talking about non-Fairfax staff who might not live in the county but have ability to speak. But otherwise, we are here to serve our constituents in the county of Fairfax. So I think, and that is my hope, we're talking about ensuring an opportunity for our residents, certainly our families and students in Fairfax County, but the way Ms. Sizemore-Heiser presented this and the way maybe you all talked about it, the comma after non-Fairfax staff was not meant to be that it could be non-Fairfax staff, non-Fairfax students, non-Fairfax parents. So I think that's got to be really clarified. Can someone on the PEC?
And that's what that's what I tried to say is that this is just a summary, right? So the actual way it's written in the participation that was posted was that this is how it's written. Is Fairfax, the current says Fairfax County and city residents. We added FCPS staff, FCPS students, or FCPS guardians who are non-Fairfax County residents. So that's how it's listed in the actual,
It's just the way you stated it, Ms. Sizemore-Heiser, you kept making it sound like they were all part of one collective. And I just want to make sure, so we're all clear, we're not talking about non-Fairfax County students and parents.
No, it's FCPS students, parents, or guardians. They just may not live in the county, and staff who may not live. So for example, a TJ student may not live in Fairfax County, or TJ students' parents may not live in Fairfax County. A staff member who may want to speak may not live in Fairfax County.
Great.
And,
thank you so much. All right,
sure.
so, yep, no problem. And then in terms of some of these other key decisions, I know you're going to take the pulse of everybody on it. So I don't want to focus too much. Here are my concerns about access. So for the video, the way it was described, that they're going to have to submit their video in advance of their actual registration, because why would we want someone to have to produce a video and then they don't even make it on the list? So did they not have to submit the video until they're actually notified that they've been selected?
So currently they have to submit their video when they sign up. Once the signups are full, they can no longer sign up, so they no longer have to submit a video. So if you go on at 6 a.m., right, and you sign up and you get one of the 15 spots and you choose video, you have to submit your video then.
And the reason, again, I'm trying to go with equity here, it's not fair that people who sign up to speak in person, they don't have to invest in writing a 3-minute speech and submit it before they even find out whether or not they'll be selected. So I don't know why we would want to make people have to go through a lot of time and effort to develop a video, then try to sign up and get one of these slots, and then they don't get it anyway. So
what I'm saying is right now, if they sign up, they get it. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, that they may not get the slot and submit it. Part of the reason for that was to avoid the video substitutions, because that's quite a lot of work for school board office and staff, where they sign up with a link to a YouTube video that has nothing to do with the school board or their comments, and then they try to substitute it out a day or two later, and then the staff has to review it. To
Yeah, like I said, I'm not going with the substitutions component. I'm going with when they go online to sign up and get a slot. Just like we don't require you to submit your speech in advance, they should not have to have a prepackaged video to submit. They should just be notified that they've gotten one of those slots and then have the 36 hours needed for the video to be vetted. That would be.
Sense.
The other thing is that I think that in the COVID world we live in now, I don't think the wait list should be restricted to those who can come, because this is a large county. I think you should be able to be on the wait list, and if you Zoom in and speak live, if that's the concern, that's as fair as, again, if someone can show up and speak in person. So I would like to have that consideration by the board. And other than that, my time's up. So
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. McLaughlin. I just remind colleagues, if you have like a technical question, I think that would be appropriate. I think we're all going to express opinions and likely disagree with one another, or perhaps not agree entirely. So just keep that in mind as we're continuing to monitor time. Ms. Marin.
Yes, I'm going to run down all these key decisions. The first two things I'd like to say, though, is I think that we need to be clear what the purpose is of public engagement. Are we just listening? Are we there to engage? Are we there to act upon things? I mean, I remember when I was young and I went to my school board, the school board would engage with me. So far, it seems like we're listening. I just think we should verify if that's our goal here. I agree with what's been said about we're there to listen to our constituents, our voters. I do, however, like the flexibility given to staff that work in FCPS or parents or guardians that have FCPS students. I think that's a fair world to include people who are invited to participate. Regarding the number of the time and the maximum number of participants, I really encourage us to adopt what Loudoun County Public School Board does, which is provide 1 minute per person for public speaking. That allows them to get through 25 speakers in under a half an hour. If we have 3 minutes per speaker for 15 speakers, that's a huge chunk of our time. Of course, it could be accommodations for folks who can't, speak in that time frame that fast or whatnot, but they do it consistently. And I really encourage us at least 2 minutes, but 3 minutes, as we see in our own board meetings, is really tough. I think organization and business partners, I do not like that language at all about business partners. I think it should be people, we have our support, our staff who, again, people who do business in FCPS with FCPS. I think too, it's a very slippery slope to be so controlling over who gets to talk to us and when. I'm not in favor of that organizational bit at all. I think that the hearings, no more hearings in January, please. We already have a budget hearing and a CIP hearing. In no way should we be adding a hearing in January. If anything, maybe that could be in May. We already have a budget hearing in May, so that really needs to be rethought of. And how about having the sign up deadline be 4 p.m.? Why does it have to be in the morning? Why can't it be the afternoon? And when staff is in office and kids are out and people are out of school? You think that's my time? Okay. I'm my own timer. I had more to say, but that's it for now.
Thank you, Ms. Marin. Ms. Pekarsky.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for all your work. So when I think about, people having the opportunity to talk to the school board, I'm really thinking my own personal goal as a school board member is to hear from as many people as possible. And to that effect, I actually agree with Ms. Marin. 3 minutes is a really long time. I think if we, look to 2 minutes, I think people, that is more than ample time to state your opinions or your thoughts to the board. And it will allow us to get more people out in front of us while still maintaining that balance of our regular, being able to do our business without going into all hours of the night, which sometimes happens. So I would really like to hear where other people are on that. I think 2 minutes for me is a really, it's a good number, and it really forces people to be succinct and to get their point across and will allow us to hear from more. The restriction on future meetings, again, in order to be able to hear from many different people, I think that's fair. It's done in other places. I am fine with that. I have an issue with the organizational piece of this. We all know there are built-in times which organizations get to speak to, the chair, to leadership. I don't know that it's appropriate in this way to kind of carve out that time. I really just want to be able to hear from everyday people who don't have, that conduit, that very easy access to us, or may not feel that they have that very easy access to us on a daily basis. So that is where I think I stand on that one. Public hearings, I'm not opposed to them, but realistically, okay, and I will stop there.
All right, Ms. Tolan.
I'm happy to follow Ms. Pekarsky. I agree that I think that the point of what we're trying to do here is be able to hear as many different opinions from as many different people as possible. So I would support perhaps moving the time limit to 2 minutes so that we could have a greater number of people to hear from. I don't see anywhere in here where we're really at all encouraging students to be speakers and coming forward and talking to the school board. A 6 a.m. sign up, it takes a pretty special student to want to get up at 6 a.m. on a Monday to sign up to speak at the school board. Also, I think many of our students, I have a young woman this week who really wants to speak to us, and at 6:02, the list was closed. And so, how do we, make that sign up process something where, and I don't have a good answer right here today, but how do we make it something where, people have the opportunity? I would almost though like to see 5 slots for students in particular, so that we may be able to actually get, students, to be able to talk to us, something like that, something, and they can sign up at a different time, whatever it takes to really make this, tell our students that they're important and we want to hear from them. The public hearings, maybe October, March kind of time frame, so that we're not in these very, very busy times of the school year, but I would definitely support additional hearings. And as far as organizations, I do think it makes sense to have times for them to speak, but perhaps we do give them some restrictions on the numbers of times that they speak, or at least give preference to varying organizations so that we hear from as many organizations as possible, over a few months. And those are my biggest comments. I'll listen to everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Keys-Gamarra.
Thank you. I'll speak to those things that are of concern. I didn't see anything here about forum topics, and I do think that that needs to be included. They are not recorded. The public, if they don't watch it, don't have any way of looking to see what has been done. And so I think that needs to be included in our discussion. I support 2 minutes. Board members are given 3 minutes. And so I think 2 minutes would allow us to have more people. I also support virtual participation for their public statements. I'd like to work on a description so that the public can understand that if offensive things are said during the time period of public discussion, that a board member and or the chair, vice chair may have to speak on behalf of those groups that could have been disparaged during the time period. I know that we've had to deal with that in the past, not often, but given some of the tenor of some of our comments, we certainly do not want to look complicit. I would also like to look at the sign-up times, which I think are burdensome. And so if we continue to have the 6 o'clock sign up, I think perhaps we need to have something in the evening as well. And with respect to the number of meetings, I would say we have to have some flexibility. especially when we know that oftentimes things arise and we would have to have a public meeting rather than the public only believing that it can happen at certain times. So those are my comments.
All right, next we have Dr. Anderson.
Turning on my camera here, my audio here. Much of what I have has been said, but I do want to share this. I am vehemently opposed to the organizational slots because I believe organizations are structured and for that purpose, to organize and to advocate and to reach out. They know how to reach out to us. We need to be able to provide access to those people who don't have a chance to come to us because they're not as streamlined. They don't have those efforts that are already laid out. So I am not in favor of holding slots for organizations. I think similarly to what Ms. McLaughlin said, we are here to represent the taxpayers of Fairfax County, and that's who should have priority first and foremost. I do want to support the what I've heard about reducing the time, whether it's 90 seconds, 2 minutes. I think there's space for us to do that a little bit better to provide more opportunity. But as we are trying to delineate how long it's going to take, we also need to leave some space for transitions. It's not just 1 minute times 25, it's 25 minutes for the public engagement piece. We also have transitions. We have issues that come up with video submissions, et cetera. So I'd like for that to be accounted for as we're determining how much of our public meetings are to be devoted to this part. I also think we should take full advantage of the fact that we are in a COVID era where we do provide opportunities for folks to testify electronically. It's not just in person. I do want to underscore very heavily what has already been said. We must find a new system where it is not that the signups open at 6 and at 6:02 they're done. That does not help our community who want to reach out to us. To that end, I do want to support some of the things that were shared regarding the no speaker substitutions, regarding not being able, or I think it's once a month that they would be able to speak. Is that correct, Ms. Sizemore-Heiser? Okay, I guess this is not the question asking portion.
Sorry, I apologize. I was trying to turn my mic on. So yes, it would be basically once every third meeting. So you speak and then 2 additional meetings you can't speak and then you can speak again. So,
I'm in very good support of that. I also would like to see how can we, I know you spoke to the lottery situation a little bit ago, but I would like to investigate that a little bit. How do we have a more flexible opportunity for people to be selected rather than the ones who can wake up at 6 or at 4, whatever the time that we're going to find, it's going to be a constraint for someone. And again, if we're wanting to have folks access us, I think we need to be sure that we provide opportunity for that. The review
Dr.
of videos,
Anderson, I think your time.
Oh,
yeah.
Ms. Amish, may I address the lottery question?
that was my time. Okay.
Ms. Amish, may
Yeah,
I quickly address the lottery to give her some thoughts on
Go
that?
ahead.
All right. So Dr. Anderson, just from some of the conversations on the lottery, the main issue with the lottery, and I'm not opposed, I'm just sort of sharing with you kind of what we talked about, is that if we expand the number of videos, it makes it harder. Lottery takes time, right? So you have a sign-up period. Let's say it's a day of a sign-up period. And then once that sign-up period closes, right now you can sign up anytime from 6 a.m. until the day before. Right now, I know it closes at 6 a.m. a lot of times, but technically it is open to sign up if it doesn't close all the way to the day before. So to do a lottery, what we would have to do is shorten that sign up period to maybe a day. So at the end of that day, or maybe 2 days, whatever it is, and then end of that day or 2 days, the lottery is held and people are notified. At that point, they would then, if we left it with 15 in-person or video, at that point, they would then have to have a certain amount of time to submit their video. So if we, let's say, open the lottery as we do now, 6 a.m., close it on Monday, close it Tuesday afternoon, so we shorten the sign-up period, then they would have only 1 day to turn around their video. So there's ways to work it. You could start to sign up a week earlier. There's ways to do it, but that was sort of the conversation we had in PEC is, given that the window of sign up right now, it makes it difficult to have, we'd have to close the signups earlier so we can have the lottery, so we can then get people to submit videos, so there's time to review those videos. I hope that helps sort of clarify that.
It does. I think I had about 10 seconds left because Ms. Omesh started telling me my time was up before the timer. Is that correct? Can I take those 10 seconds? If not, that's fine too.
I thought it went off before, but go ahead. I'm not sure. Go ahead.
Sure. I'll just add just to follow up with what Ms. Heiser said. I wonder if we could be a little bit more creative in terms of when we open up the time. Instead of Monday, maybe it's the Friday before or the Thursday before. I just want to put that out there with my last few seconds. Thank you.
That's what would have to probably be done. So yes.
Okay, Mr. Frisch.
Thank you. So some of this has been talked about, and Ms. Sizemore-Heiser and Ms. Anderson, Dr. Anderson just mentioned some of it. My goal here, I think, is to advance as much equity in this conversation as possible. I think one of the way, what the committee tried to do, which Ms. Sizemore-Heiser has spoken to, is create more access to new people who are not availing themselves of getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I would support shortening the speaking time to 2 minutes, which would give us an extra third of people to speak. I think it would bring us up to like 20 people and maybe 7 videos if we get 7 submissions. We can figure out the submission of the videos. I think moving the sign up to 1 full day on Thursday before a meeting, so 1 week before the meeting, you would have a day where people can sign up. It doesn't matter what time they sign up, because if they close of business on Thursday, that day that we're allowing signups, we would put the names into an automatic random generator, which are extensive around the internet. We can certainly find one that would then spit out a list of people in a random order. And that random order would serve as our list and our wait list. I think that in terms of making sure that we are being as accommodating as possible, it's essential that we put a cap on the number of times a person can speak in a row to space people out, that we don't allow for substitutions. Those things were put in place to help subvert, I can only imagine, to help subvert the luck of the draw sign up situation that we currently have. If we get rid of the luck of the draw sign up situation where it matters if you get in there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and now it only matters that you get your name in over a 12-hour period, whatever it is, then we don't have a need for some of those things.
Thank you. Ms. Cohen.
Sure. Just one step further, I 100% agree with Carl. I think we have to have a lottery. The way that we do it right now actually is a super big equity issue. It is for folks who have disabilities. It is for folks who have access issues to the internet, work hours. The lottery is the only, in my mind, fair way that we can do it. The only caveat I would make to Carl's suggestion, I agree with him totally, but is to have a subset that is different for our students, to make sure that our students are prioritized. And if the students are who fill up all the slots, then that's how it goes. But that's my suggestion, or I liked Elaine's suggestion of having designated slots. The business partners gives me really significant pause. I think much like we just had a conversation about orgs, our business partners know how to get in touch with us. There are very appropriate ways for them to speak to the school board and to FCPS staff. So I'm opposed to that. The call-in versus online, I would love to have Mr. Sethi give us, some options about an online automated system. So that does take the works off the clerks of somebody sitting there and answering a phone line. I agree that I'd like to clarify that in-person also means virtual. Again, I think that is another way to make it much more equitable for people who cannot get down to Loser Jackson. And the other would be, I'm 100% in support of extending you doing 2 minutes, which would give us hopefully 20 people, as Carl said. I think that is totally appropriate and a good way for for us to hear more people. And also the video piece, I just want us not to get too hung up in the idea of like manufacturing a video. I know some people have done that in the past, but the vast majority of people just, hit record on their phone and submit their videos that way. So in terms of how much time you need to prepare something like that, I think it's very similar to speaking in person.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Ms. Cohen. I'm looking at hands if folks want to comment before. Okay. I did want to give an opportunity to Ms. Mulberg or Ms. Madeja to chime in. I know that they're the ones working on this on a regular basis. So if they would like to comment on any of these or add any information.
Can you hear me okay? I know there's no audio issues before. No, you can't. Okay.
Is Ms. Madeja?
I completely agree with any way that you can make it possible to have more folks, different folks address you. I think would be great. We're willing to do whatever it is that you ask of us. It seems that the 6 a.m. sign up, I believe, was at one time to make it easier for teachers. But I do think that if you offer something other than online, perhaps the phone, that then that way that it might be easier. Not everyone is a 6 a.m. riser.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands, I will take my turn. I think, I can really get behind the possibility of the lottery idea. I think regardless, I do support shortening the time of how long, and I actually am inclined to support what Ms. Marin said about 1 minute and having more speakers, but with a priority list at minimum and students being at the top. Ms. Tolan, said it perfectly, but that would be something I'd want to look at. I think we do have to be explicit about accommodations. So if we do shorten the time, I think particularly for disability and perhaps even language difficulty, that we would, find a way to say that, I don't know, an additional 30 seconds, or they don't, but then how do you not single them out? I think more thought needs to be given to that, but we should be very clear about that being an accommodation we have. I do support the idea of not having people speak at every single meeting that we cycle through. I don't think that we should focus too much on limiting who's able to sign up, because if we do set up a prioritization system, then that would allow us to line them up properly. I did want to emphasize two particular things. I feel very strongly against 1B. I said this in committee, but was alone. That groups that are organized and know how to get to us are not exactly who we're targeting with this, and that contributes to the problem that we always find ourselves in, where certain voices kind of are louder on a conversation than others. So, and the second piece to address that as well, I do want to see us having some kind of open public hearing forum with those twice a year sessions. Perhaps not scheduled in January since it might be overwhelming, but at times that are relevant. So May be too late, too close to the summer, since that was suggested by some folks, but I did just want to put that out there. We saw that with return to school, how many people wanted to engage with us on things, and I think that will open up the door for many others. In terms of showing up in person, I do think we need to find some kind of protocol when people come to not deny them because there's something off with that. But that's some time. So seeing no other hands, I actually think that we will be able to go backs and start gathering consensus on some of these. So I'm going to pass it on to Ms.
I haven't had my turn yet as a board member, as opposed to Chair of PEC.
Oh, I didn't see your hand. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
okay.
No, I just wanted to just take my turn really quickly. Just because it's different as my role as a presenter than as the board member.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, super quick. So I don't have any questions. I would also like to find a way to move organizations. I think they have plenty of access and substitute those slots for students. I think that's a great idea that Ms. Tolan had. I fully support having at least 5 separate slots for students. And of course, if they don't get filled, then it can go to the wait list, or we can figure pieces of that out. But I think that's a really good idea. I like the 2-minute time limit as well. I'm not opposed to a lottery. I have a suggestion that perhaps we could put in a lottery where the signups are Thursday and Friday the week before. They close Friday, at whatever 3. That's when we have the lottery and people are notified, which gives them the weekend. The videos are then perhaps, if there's videos, due Tuesday, which gives sufficient time to review the video. So I'm just going to put that out there as perhaps that's a good sort of compromise way to do that. And if there's an automated phone system and online for that sign up, that would be great, so people can do that. As far as a live participation, I think that's a great idea. I know we talked about it briefly on PEC. The question I have is, would we also allow phone calling? So if you're not have good Wi-Fi access or Zoom or whatever it may be, are we going to allow people to call in via phone? And that's just something else to throw out there for opening that up. And I'm not going to take any more time on that piece of it because but I just wanted to share those few thoughts. So thank you.
Thank you. So with that, I'm going to pivot to Ms. Cohen, who's going to lead us through some of the consensus votes and go backs.
All right, we're going to leave the key decisions up, and I know we're trying to fly through this. So if I miss anything, please feel free to flag it for me. I just circled a few easy ones where there seemed to be consensus. So if I'm going to take a little bit of discretion here and try to work through it. By my count, we had at least 8 people who expressed changing to a 2-minute 20 slot timetable. May we do a quick show of hands to see if that is something that people are interested in doing? I see on my screen Ms. Tolan, Ms. Sizemore Heiser, Ms. Omesh, Ms. Keys Gamara, Ms. Corbett Sanders, Ms. Marin, Dr. Anderson, Ms. Pekarsky, Ms. McLaughlin, Mr. Frisch, Ms. Derenak Kofax, Ms. Tolan, and myself. So we're going to call that a win. The next ones I'll go through, and if it's all right with you all, what I'd like to do is just ask for without objection so we don't have to count the votes. And if you have one, please feel free to throw your hand up and we'll go from there. So one that seemed pretty easy was the topic, no restriction, but must comply with non-discrimination policy. Can we agree to that without objection? I see Ms. Sizemore Heiser's hand. Is that an objection?
Oh, sorry, no.
Okay, I have Dr. Anderson's hand. Is that an objection?
More of a clarification. I may have missed this, so I apologize. I don't want to object. When we don't have the topic restriction, are we still restricting it to things that are not CIP, budget, and boundary? Those 3 things are still held within their own.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have no objection.
Okay, I see a hand from Ms. Derenak Kofax.
That was my exact question. Thank you, Dr. Anderson.
Okay, Ms. McLaughlin. Oh.
Sorry. Now can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
So my concern on the no topic restriction is that, the goal was when the board is faced in a business meeting, we're about to take action, and citizen participation for a new business item plus action item is that we're ideally trying to put priority on the people speaking to actions we're going to take. And so if it's no restriction, then we could have 20 slots filled up with people wanting to talk about middle school break time. And meanwhile, we'll have no slots that were necessarily on the topic of the agenda. So that's my only hesitancy on this one. I don't know that this is so easy to go, sure, no topic restriction, and then, well, what are we accomplishing? So I'm a little worried about making that decision today.
Okay.
But that might
So let's lodge that as an objection, if that's all right. I know that's not exactly how you intended it, but maybe for further debate.
Point of clarification.
So, yes, sir.
Just in terms of process, we are giving our consensus on a variety of topics, and then those will be incorporated into the document, which will be brought to the board for a affirmative yes or no vote, correct?
Yes, sir. Exactly right.
So this is not the final stop on the road show here.
No.
Okay,
No.
thank you.
So because that had objection, if everybody will bear with me, we're going to pull that topic one and we're going to come to it in a minute if that's, oh, Ms. Marin. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to clarify using the really handy chart that someone put together, the topics. No topic restriction was about general public participation. Topics for hearings, that's different, and the topic restriction. And the answer that was given seemed to conflate those two. So can we please clarify?
Yes, we certainly can. Ms. Sizemore Heiser, do you want to address that?
Yeah, my understanding of the committee was those topics for the CIP budget and boundaries were not part of the topics for speaking either at a business meeting or at an additional hearing. And if we need to clarify the language in the policy, we're happy to do that. But that was the understanding.
Okay. Okay.
And
All
again,
right.
the charts were really just provided to try to help guide. It wasn't sort of a detail of everything.
All right, I'm gonna keep moving because I'm worried about our time. So let's table that one. We're gonna come back to it. Okay, the restrictions on future speaking, allowing 2 business meetings in between when someone would speak. Does that have objection? Ms. Corbett Sanders, I see your hand up. I did not mean to ignore you. Do you have objection? Oh, okay. All right.
Not on that one. I'll raise my hand when it's appropriate again.
Yes, ma'am. All right, so restrictions, let's cross that as a yes. All right, substitute, no, let's not do that. How about timing of videos, the video testimony? No, wait, hold on. Let's do sign up times. That seems like the least, and then we'll go from there. So sign up times. Is there an appetite to coordinate online and phone sign up time so that they would be together? We're gonna bug Mr. Sethi to help us figure out what's the best system to do that. And I understand we're gonna discuss as a broader group what that looks like in terms of what day of the week it is and what time it is. But is there general consensus to at least coordinate those two? Okay, I don't see any objection to that. All right, then let's go next to substitutions. This was, can you substitute 2 things? And Ms. Sizemore-Heiser, correct me if I'm wrong. Number 1 would be what we have seen happen a lot, which is I sign up as Laura Jane Cohen, and then all of a sudden Ms. O'May shows up instead and says, I've taken Laura Jane's spot. The second part would be that what we're seeing right now is folks signing up for video submissions are putting in just a random YouTube link as their video submission, which is then substituted for their actual video. I recognize that these are 2 separate things, so let's tackle them that way. Number 1 would be, do we agree that we will not allow physical substitutions in the case of Laura Jane signs up, but Abraris who speaks? I see Ms. Omash's hand and Ms. McLaughlin's hand. So let's table that one. We're going to come back to it as a one with objection. All right, timing of videos. This one says,
Ms. Cohen?
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
so sorry. Just because I appreciate what Mr. Frisch said, that we're just taking consensus and ultimately it'll be a board vote. I wanted just clarity on that one for substitutions. Is the board considering that, especially for parents? There could be an emergency at home. There could be a parent who got hung up at work. The spouse comes to speak in that person's place. I'm just thinking of illness problems. That's my only concern with the 0 substitution piece.
Yeah, I like that idea of a same household thing. So why don't we come back to that? And we'll see if we can figure out timing of that. Okay, that's on my list. All right, then timing of videos. So this one was video testimony must be submitted 36 hours in advance. Do we want to, Ms. Sizemore-Heiser, I'm going to deflect back to you. Do we want to hold on this? Because if we decide that we're going to do a larger lottery piece, then the whole timing of all of it is different?
Yeah, if I may make a suggestion, just from listening to my colleagues, and just take a liberty, it sounded like there's some appetite for some sort of random or lottery piece. So if I may make a suggestion that we add a key decision that perhaps says, do we want to institute a lottery or random procedure just in general, and we can then figure out the details of that procedure, but or not? Is there consensus on having, instead of a first come first serve, a lottery? I think that might then help clarify the sign up times and procedure conversation.
Okay, with everybody's permission, then let's hold on that one, and we will come back to it. The last one that was on my list that looked like there was some consensus is organizations. And I'm guessing here we probably want to take a vote. So if everybody will bear with me as the first of our vote ones. Please raise your hand if you would like us to, so affirming the positive, like us to hold 5 spots for defined organization. And again, just as a reminder, those organizations would be FCCPTA, our SEPTA, our board, our MSAOC, our liaison, our committees.
Advisory committees.
And advisory committees, sorry, my brain.
Okay.
Those slots would be limited, and our staff organizations. So I think sorry, go ahead, Ms. Sunriser.
I was just saying it would be any countywide PTA. So currently that's FCC, PTA, and SEPTA. But if there was another countywide PTA, I don't know what it would be. I just wanted to clarify. It's countywide PTA, all of our staff associations, and any of our advisory committees. Those are the 3 that are defined right now.
Okay. So if please everybody would raise your hand if you would like us to have 5 spots for organizations. Please raise your hand. Okay, I see Ms. Corbett Sanders. All right. Ms. Corbett Sanders, is it a question or a vote? I just wanted to make sure I wasn't speaking over top of you.
So the question I have is maybe we want to split this out a little bit, because although we keep talking about, we've had multiple people say that there are great opportunities for organizations to come and speak to us without having to come and speak publicly. The only reason that I see this as important is for transparency, so that the public hears what these organizations are advocating for in a public forum, so that it's well known. It's a transparency piece.
Sure, and I'm going to raise my hand as board member and not meeting manager to just say my only heartburn here is that there's not, other than the yearly reports, there don't seem to be a great way for our advisory committees to necessarily weigh in. And sometimes we've had some topics where I think it would be a great, like if we had somebody from MSAOC come and testify about the TJ stuff. There are lots of places where I see, and it doesn't mean we haven't touched base with them, but again, as you said, transparency. So just speaking as Laura Jane, I don't mind us breaking this out and into that as well. I see Ms. McLaughlin and then Dr. Anderson, but I also see Ms. Mulberg. So Ms. Mulberg, do you mind? Sorry, going ahead. Nope, we lost Ms. Mulberg. All right, Ms. McLaughlin, if you don't mind jumping in there.
Thank you. Real quick, I think that at a macro level, we need to understand that citizen participation in speaking in public predates the internet. It predates people being able to interview or to email us, message us instantly with their thoughts about what we're doing here. And so I say all of that because while I agree with Ms. Corbett Sanders about the value of transparency and the public getting hearing from our larger stakeholders, I'm also mindful that in the pandemic, there's been, I think, harmful characterizations that this board listens to certain associations or certain employee groups, or that people have more power over us than others, and none of that is true. And so if we set aside specific slots, right now, our chairs of our advisory committees have a liaison in the school board to alert them if something's important. Anytime, anywhere, people can email us, including our advisories, including our associations, who have a lot of face time with the superintendent and with school board members in other structured meetings. So I would again posit that we need to just look as democratic and accessible for all groups, and not place a favoritism other than maybe the conversation around students.
Thank you. I have Dr. Anderson and then Mr. Frisch and then Ms. Sizemore-Heiser. I'm gonna let you wrap us up.
Thank you. I just want to really support what Ms. McLaughlin has just shared. We're here to represent the citizens of Fairfax County. Organizations are structured. They have means of reaching out to us. If we feel that there is a topic that is going to be integral for us to hear from our advisory committees, then we should definitely have that information be provided to us. I think this is a slippery slope in terms of defining what organizations are. And we'll find ourselves in a position where we'll have all organizations across Fairfax County jockeying for these 5 slots or to be recognized for these 5 slots because they are an organization. And this is not something that I think is conducive to our work of listening to the broader community. Organizations are structured and they can reach us. They already do. They text, they email, they're organized for that way. Citizens' participation should be for every single citizen. And so I am vehemently against having any organizational slots that are reserved.
Okay, I want to be mindful. We have 10 minutes left and we still have a bunch to get through. So I have Mr. Frisch's hand and Ms. Keys-Gamarra, and then I would like us to go ahead and vote on this.
Just very quickly, one food for thought is that by having these slots on the side, we are taking them out of the rotation for whatever lottery we put forward. So they're not taking up a space from the general public engagement portion of the meeting. So that might be something worth considering.
Thank you, Ms. Keys-Gamarra, and then Ms. Sizemore-Heiser.
Yeah, I actually agree with the premise that we don't have to demarcate any particular slots for an organization, but for a different reason. If you look under the law, analogous to this, you looked at corporations versus individuals, and the courts look at corporations as persons. And that's not something that we particularly is intuitive. But I think if we follow that analogy here, the organizations have the same opportunity as any other individual. So I think perhaps, it takes away any kind of negative language that might be associated with these organizations and gives us an analogy that might be helpful. So I just offer that in my humble opinion. Thanks.
Ms. Sizemore-Heiser?
I was just going to say that I think it's going to be hard with our advisory committees. The public engagement committee is currently working on revising sort of the operations and processes and procedures for our advisory committees per the forum topic that was passed earlier. So that additional engagement with our advisory committees during the year when we have things that we may need their advice on can be sort of done through that process that we're currently working on, as opposed to having to do it here. So I think that maybe for me, taking off organizations and either just taking them off and substituting them with students or just taking them off is how I would go. But there is another process for that advisory committee engagement. I just wanted to share that piece.
Thank you. All right, I see Ms. Omash's hand, and then we're going to vote on this one.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, obviously, it's important to be above the fray in this conversation, how we think about it. But I did want to point out that there are already systemic ways that, or institutionalized ways that these organizations are able to meet with some of us. So we even have a policy that outlines official meetings regularly with staff and leadership and all of that. So I think we just have to keep that in mind. They have plenty of access. Dr. Anderson said the rest of my points, but I feel strongly against it.
Okay. Let's go ahead and vote on this one because I'd like us to at least get through lottery before 3 o'clock. All right, so please, everybody put your hands down. And this is, again, if you are affirming. So yes, I would like to hold 5 spots for the organizations as explained by Ms. Sizemore-Heiser. Okay, I see no hands. So what if you would say, no, I would not like to see 5 spots? Please raise your hand. All right, I have Ms. Sizemore-Heiser, Ms. Omash, Ms. Pekarsky, Ms. Keys-Gamarra, Ms. McLaughlin, Ms. Corbett-Sanders, Ms. Cohen, Dr. Anderson, Ms. Derenak-Kofax, Mr. Frisch, Ms. Marin. All right, that is unanimous. So that's a no. All right, next one is a new one proposed by Ms. Sizemore Heiser and about changing over to a lottery procedure. We will get more information. Obviously, this is one of those that's going to have to come back to us when we see the whole policy. So this is not your last chance ever to have this conversation. But this would be a lottery / random procedure. Ms. Sizemore Heiser has her hand up. Yes, ma'am.
Super quick, I just wanted to mention that what I will do is if this does pass, I can send out options for how this might run and get consent and just get feedback from the board as we're drafting it. So I'm sure the details of it, get that feedback that way. So if it's just more of what overarching procedure, lottery versus first come, first serve.
Perfect. That's helpful. Ms. McLaughlin, I see your hand up. Oh, no. Okay. All right. So let's do that. Raise your hand if you are in support of a lottery procedure as opposed to our first come, first serve current system. I see Ms. Sizemore Heiser, Ms. McLaughlin, Ms. Cohen, Dr. Anderson, Ms. Derenak Kofax, Ms. Tolan, Mr. Frisch. Man, you guys, it keeps like changing all of them. Ms. Pekarsky, Ms. Tolan, I may have already said, Ms. Mirren, looks like everybody. All right.
Ms. Cohen, it's helpful if you check the list of participants rather than the screen because the screen jumps all over the place.
Okay. I will try to figure out how to do that while you guys are talking on the next one. All right. The next that I have then down for a vote is topic restriction. So we're going to say this one as please raise your hand if you are in favor of no topic restriction other than the budget and CIP, which have to be discussed at those public hearings.
And boundary.
I'm sorry, and boundary.
Can I ask a point of clarification?
Absolutely.
I don't know that they have to be discussed, Ms. Cohen. I think we need clarity. By law, we have to have a hearing on the budget and the CIP. I don't think that means we cannot have them discussed at other meetings.
Right. No, I'm sorry. Oh, I see what you're saying.
You know, because I'm in favor of no limits as long as it's, civil. And then yes, at the hearing, we have a budget focused hearing and a CIP hearing. Because really, if someone's coming to us with these topics beforehand, it can help our thinking and we're always developing stuff. So I wish I could just vote on one of those things and not both of them. But
okay,
maybe I'm
Ms. Sizemore Heiser has her hand up here. So, and we may need Mr. Foster to weigh in. I thought that there was some guidance from the General Assembly about that, but I may be wrong.
My understanding is that you have to have a hearing on those topics, but that doesn't mean you can't talk about those topics somewhere else. Right, but you're required to have those public hearings. So you can have, in Ms. May put in the chat, sometimes we have a budget or CIP presentation at our regular meeting, so which is on the agenda. So the only requirement, my understanding from the law, and Mr. Foster can correct me if I'm wrong, is that you have to have a public hearing on those topics. It doesn't stop us from talking about them in other spots.
Mr. Foster, do you want to weigh in 30 seconds?
Yeah, I apologize. I'm having some technical difficulties here. I hope you can at least hear me. But yes, I think that Ms. Sizemore Heiser and others on the board summarized the approach correctly. I mean, we are required to have public hearings on the CIP budget boundaries, but that does not stop the board from having additional discussions at meetings. For the purposes of those statutorily required public hearings, as has been discussed, you do need, to let everybody who signs up speak, but that wouldn't stop you from having additional meetings on it.
Perfect. So if you'll allow me to, I would like to rephrase the vote then, that this vote is, please raise your hand in the affirmative if you would like to support no topic restrictions, but you still have to comply with the FCPS non-discrimination policy and you still may not target individual students. I see Ms. Sizemore Heiser, Ms. Omesh, Ms. McLaughlin, Ms. Corbett Sanders, myself, Ms. Derenak Kofax, Ms. Marin, Dr. Anderson, Ms. Tolan, Mr. Frisch. And that is it. All right. Voting against. I see Ms. Pekarsky. Oh, no, Ms. Pekarsky is voting in the affirmative. All right.
Sorry, I didn't take it down fast.
No, that's okay. And Ms. Keys-Gamarra, did I miss your vote?
Actually, I didn't vote because I still had a lack of clarity. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay.
I'm assuming that when we have a budget meeting, a budget public hearing, that those people who speak there would be speaking on the budget and not other topics. That's the lack of clarity I didn't have.
Yes, and my understanding is that is the case, that those are specific and we can say that the content there has to be limited. These are just at our school board meetings, is my
Okay,
understanding.
then I would vote in the affirmative. Thank you.
Okay. All right, guys, we have like 1 minute, so I have 2 more things to get through if possible. Number 1 is who, and the who question was, are we going to expand who may speak to include non-Fairfax County residents who are either FCPS guardians, FCPS staff, or FCPS students? So this would be raising your hand if you would like to include non-Fairfax County residents, though, who are FCPS students, parents, and we're going to do the alumni one separately. So, all right, that's Ms. Sizemore Heiser, Ms. Omesh, Ms. McLaughlin, Ms. Cohen, Ms. Corbett Sanders, Ms. Pekarsky, Ms. Derenak Kofax, Ms. Tolan, Ms. Keys-Gamarra, Ms. Marin, Mr. Frisch. All right, opposed? All right, abstaining? All right, sorry, maybe we got everybody the first time around. Okay, next is FCPS alumni. Raise your hand if you would like to include FCPS alumni in who can testify.
Ms. Cohen, I have a clarifying question.
Yes, ma'am.
So it would be FCPS alumni who no longer live in the county. Because obviously if you're an alumni and you live in the county, it's fine.
Sure, absolutely. That's a good clarification. So non-resident FCPS alumni.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I wish we had a conversation. I'm trying to understand what non-residents, not having a child tied to our schools, why, you know, we're going to give this kind of special carve out. I mean, if you don't live in the county and you don't have a kid in our schools and you're not an employee, they can write to us. I don't think they should be taking up a speaking space, and we didn't talk about it.
Okay, Ms. Sizemore, sure, you may, absolutely.
It's not currently in the draft. The alumni is not in the current draft policy, but it was brought to my attention by a couple of board members. I just wanted to flag it. There was a couple board members who were interested in that, but the current draft does not include alumni, just to clarify.
So let's go ahead then take the vote. I appreciate that clarification, Ms. McLaughlin. This is supporting non-resident FCPS alumni.
Ms. Cohen, can I ask a question? I'm sorry.
You can.
Who's
go
going to be doing the verification? Because now you start to get into, you know, some back work that needs to be done. I think that could be an issue. So if there's an answer to that, if not, I'm just voting against this.
I think this might be a good one to table with everybody's permission. Do people want to come back to this, or should we go ahead and just at least get a consensus from folks? I see some nods. Ms. Sizemore Heiser, what would be most helpful to you and Peck?
My understanding is that all the verification currently is done by our school board office. So unless we change that, I'm not, you know, making a comment on how I think of that. I just think that's my understanding so far, as the school board office does the verification. So unless we decided to give that to somebody else, my understanding is that would be who would be doing the verification. So, you know, it is a concern, but just to put out, that's my understanding right now, is who verifies, you know, in terms of organizations or business partners, any of those pieces, that's who would be verifying that.
So would it be helpful, Ms. Mulberg's just saying no verification done currently, that would definitely be extra work. So Ms. Sizemore Heiser, do you need to know the answer to this to be able to move forward, or would you rather?
Unless the board wants to add it, the current draft does not have it. So it was just something to bring up as a conversation. So it doesn't seem to me that there's, if anyone wants So I would say no. I would say right now I'm not going to add it unless someone wants to make that motion, and they can always make that motion either at the business meeting when we vote on this, or as I circulated a draft, someone. But I'd say right now I would not be adding it. It's not something that Peck agreed to add. It was something that was flagged for me after the fact, similar to the lottery conversation. We didn't have the lottery, but Nuffield brought it up to me that I wanted to bring it up to the board. So it does not seem to me that there's consensus to add this. So as right now, my inclination is to not add it. And someone can always bring that as a motion if they chose to.
Okay, Ms. Darren Kovacs, you had your hand up. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't passing you by.
Yeah, no, it was the same, I guess. And if we don't have that information now, but I would like to clarify with our clerks, what our capability is, how can we verify this? I do not know how far back our data records go. And I know through former boards, we had wanted a more robust alumni engagement. And part of the reason we weren't able to get some of this programming off the board is we didn't capture that data. So unless we know that we can have verification, I think we're opening ourselves up to concerns.
Okay. I think this one sounds like it's definitely, we need more information. And so let's come back to this one. We can either add it onto a work session or something super fast if we need to do that. So let's hold that. The last one we have to do, and then we'll go straight into closed. You guys have been awesome. Is do we want to, so this is raising your hands if you are in support of having a wait list. So I don't know, Ms. Sizemore-Heiser, just super fast, is this a wait list that is of the, now we said 2 minutes and 20, is this an additional 20 folks in a wait list that can be pulled from?
The current waitlist the previous waitlist process was that if you didn't get a sign-up spot, you had to come to the meeting in person and sign up to be on the wait list there. And if there was any spots available, you could speak. Then what we have done instead is we had a first come, first serve, but once the wait list closes, once the sign-up list, closes, then whoever was left to sign up would be randomly generated into wait list. So the way I would envision this with the lottery, kind of off the top of my head, is we would have people, whatever number of day, 1 day, 2 days for people to sign up. Then the lottery is run and the first 20 are randomly selected to speak. And then we could have the rest of the people who weren't randomly selected in that lottery to be randomly selected into a wait list and then notified either, whether we have a 20-person wait list or perhaps we just have a wait list and everybody's ranked randomly. And we say, you are spot number 45 on the wait list. If you want to come in person, you can speak. So that was what we added to this was a randomly generated wait list that people would be notified that they were on the wait list and their spot, as opposed to just having to show up in person. So the question is, do we want to have a randomly generated wait list with notification to people that they're on that wait list versus having to show up in person to speak?
Okay, and I know we'll have to call on Mr. Sethi again and his amazing crew to help us figure out how to make all of that work.
Sorry, apologize, Ms. Cohen, one clarification. And currently we had no videos allowed for the wait list because of the time it takes to review videos, but we could, if we decided to add live in person, that could be something that people on the wait list could do via Zoom or whatever, as opposed to videos. Just want to throw that out there.
Okay. All right. I have overlooked 2 people's hands who are up, and I just want to check, and then we'll vote, and this will be our last one, and we'll head to close. Ms. Keys-Gamarra, I see you on your screen, on my screen with your hand up, and I've not called on you.
My comment was on the previous thing. So if you're tabling that, I'm happy to wait.
Okay. All right. And Dr. Anderson, you also had your hand up, and I didn't want to overlook you.
Thank you. Just very quickly on this issue, I am concerned unless we can make this automatic. I'm really concerned about how much we're asking our clerks to take on to do a lottery, to then do another randomized lottery wait list. For that alone, I'm not able to support or not support this. I'd like to have that information first in terms of what that workload will be for the staff.
So why don't we add this with permission to our table list where we're going to get more information about the specifics and make sure that we're not just overburdening the school board office, but that we can do this in a way that makes sense. I see 2 hands up and I don't want to pass you by, Mr. Frisch and then Ms. Tolan.
Just very quickly, I poked around at some of the technology that's out there right now. Just for simplicity's sake, there are plenty of ways that all of the people who put their names in to be selected could be put into a system that then spits out a randomly generated list in order. And you would take our top people as the speakers and everybody else would be the wait list. So we wouldn't have to run two of anything. We would have a list that is generated from top to bottom in a random order, and there would be a cutoff for what's going to be live, and then everybody else would be the backup list, and there'd be a policy for governing that.
All right, thank you, Ms. Tolan.
Yes, I just wanted to go back to my earlier comments, since it's not listed in the key decisions, the idea of adding slots for students. I'm happy to say at this point that, to have PEC go back and taking a look at this whole procedure, do we want to add in, 5 slots that are reserved for students or, some other type of procedure to ensure that we have representation from students?
I think it's appropriate. I think it's an appropriate thing for us to vote on. We did for the organizations, the 5 spots. Why don't we just do a quick pulse? And if we get more information, we get more information. But would people like to reserve 5 spots that are for students? And then if they don't fill, obviously they would go back into the normal queue. So may we get a show of hands if you support adding 5 student speaker slots that then would be filled by the general public if not taken. Dr. Anderson has a question. Yes, ma'am.
Just a clarification, these are student slots, not student slots that are going to be filled by parents. Can we get a clarification there?
Yes, they would need to be actual students.
Thank you.
Ms. Sizemore-Heiser.
I think that just a quick question in terms of verifying. I know we have I'm sure it's pretty easy to look at our current list of students and SIS and make sure that they're a current student who signed up, but then a procedure to sort of cut it off if it's not a student who actually shows up to testify is the one. I mean, obviously parents can stand with them, right? But the student is one who's speaking. My only concern is then turning those, I guess those slots can be available just in person on the day of, but it'd be hard to then, I think I want to get some clarification. Do we then, if no, we don't have 5 students sign up, do we then notify waitlist people, those have opened up? Or do we wait till the day of? So that way, if a student shows up the day of, there's that slot available for them. That's my clarification, maybe getting too much into the weeds, but
yeah, I think this is one of those where I would just like to give you a general consensus if people would like that. And then you can come back to us about what is the actual specifics. And then we have got to go to close. And I know everybody would love a super fast bathroom break. So may we just, I'm sorry, Ms. Corbett Sanders has her hand up.
Yeah, it's the, we're substituting the 5 slots that were originally, I just want to clarify, the 5 slots that were originally proposed to be used for organizations will now be allocated to students, still limiting the total to 20.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
No, oh wait, Ms. Sizemore-Heiser has her hand up. All right, we're running out of time, so if we can't wrap this up. No, it's okay.
Quick. The earlier consensus was we're lowering it to 2 minutes and increasing the spots to 20 for the regular speakers. These 5 spots were not part of that regular, we're reducing from 3 to 2 and going up to 20 spots. That was the earlier consensus. We had a consensus on 2 minutes earlier in the meeting today. So if that, originally that was written, it was 15 spots of 3 minutes. We voted on 2 minutes and 20 spots. So these organization spots were separate from those original 15 spots. So I think the question we need to ask is, are these 5 student spots separate from those 20 spots or set aside of those 20 spots and still at 2 minutes?
So because we have, I'm gonna interject, because we have to go to closed, let's table this and we bring it back either again with a quickie work session to just do these last 3 or 4 that we need more information, or we'll find out a better way to make this happen. But we're not going to get there. So I know that we've got to get to closed. Thank you all so much for this total speed dating session with the PEC committee. And we'll try to finish this up here soon. All right, we're going to need to go into closed. So we'll adjourn this session and see you all in closed. Dr. Anderson,
No, don't go to closed yet. We have to convene closed. So
Yeah, we
I'll
have to
do
set
that,
it
then we'll
5.
take a couple of minutes break and then we'll go into closed. Okay, the board will now make a motion to go into closed to consult with legal counsel regarding probable litigation or specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel pursuant to sections 2.2-3711, A7 and A8 of the Code of Virginia, specifically disciplinary matters concerning students pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A2. I see that's been moved by Ms. Corbett Sanders, seconded by Ms. Derenak Kaufax. All in favor? Ms. Corbett Sanders, Ms. Derenak Kaufax, Ms. Solmeish, Ms. Pekarsky, Ms. Keys Gamara, Ms. Cohen, Ms. Tolan, Ms. McLaughlin, Ms. Marin, Mr. Frisch, and myself. That is unanimous. Oh, I do not have a vote recorded for Ms. Sizemore Heiser. Oh, there she is. I see it. You're there. That is unanimous. It is 3:15. Let's just say 5 minutes. 3:20. We'll meet in the closed session. Thank you all.